In this lesson, we're going to explore migration. Migration involves migrating roles, features, shares, operating system settings between the old server, 2003, we have here in our example, to the new server, server 2012 R2. Migration allows the movement of roles, features, shares, or settings between different architectures. For example, Server 2003 stands on the architecture x86, where Server 2012 R2 stands on the architecture x64. So if your machine is an x86 processor machine, you're not going to be able to install Server 2012 R2. Also, remember from previous videos that we went through the upgrade paths. You cannot upgrade from Server 2003 to Server 2012 R2. You can't upgrade between different editions. So what's left? Well, you have to get a new server with hardware that will support Server 2012. On that server, you're going to install Server 2012. But what you can do then is to migrate your settings that you have for the 2003 server to the 2012 server. So we're going to be exploring that option in this lesson. Let's take a look at the migration steps. The first thing that we need to do is to install the Windows Server Migration tool on our destination server, which will be our Server 2012 R2 server. Our next step is creating a deployment folder on the destination server, which is the Server 2012. And this deployment folder is going to be used for copying to the source server. Our third step is that we're going to actually copy the deployment folder from the destination to the source server. And our last step is registering Windows Server Migration tools on the source server. That step is necessary because Server 2003 does not come with the migration tool folder. The next thing that we're going to do is to actually begin the installation of the Windows Server Migration tool on the destination server. We're going to click on Manage, Add Roles and Features. At the Before screen, before you begin screen, we're going to click Next. We're going to accept this as a role-based installation. Next. Accept the name of the server. And our tool that we want, the migration tool, is not a role, it's a feature. So we have to click Next to get to the feature screen. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for Windows Migration tool. And here it is, Windows Server Migration tool. Once we have selected that, let's just pause a moment and look at the description. The description says, Windows Server Migration tools includes Windows PowerShell commandlets that facilitate migration of server roles, operating system settings, files, and shares from computers that are running earlier versions of Windows Server or Windows Server 2012 to computers that are running Windows Server 2012. So we're going to click Next and click on Install. When the installation stops, we will resume. Installation succeeded, so we can now close the wizard. Then we actually want to go into the migration tools. So we're going to click Tools, and we're going to look for Windows Server Migration. So we're going to scroll down and look for that. And here it is, Windows Server Migration. And we want to scroll over to the left and click on Windows Server Migration Tools. As you can see, it opens up into a command prompt. At the command prompt, we want to change over to the Server Migration Tools folder. This would have been installed when we install Server Migration Tools. So we want to type cd space dot slash server migration tools and hit enter. And this is going to carry us to the Server Migrations tool prompt. And at this prompt, we then need to create that folder that we spoke about. Remember, we're still on Server 2012 machine, which is the destination server, and we need to create this folder that is going to hold the files from the source server. We're going to start by typing dot slash server migration.exe, that is SMIG deploy, which is the exe folder or the exe file. Then we're going to say what the package is, and this is the package that we're going to be getting from the source server. So we type slash package. Then we have to state the architecture. So we type slash architecture. We also have to say that is an x86 system. So x86, remember that Windows Server 2003 is an x86 processor system. Then we also have to type the operating system, which is Windows Server 2003. So that's WS03. And then we have to type the path where we actually want to store this folder, bearing in mind that we're still on the destination server. So we type path slash path. We're actually going to be saving this on drive E. So I type E:/ migration tools. That's a T. Let's go back and make that a G. Tools. Always double check before you enter. PowerShell will give you a red arrow if you type something wrong. So that is server migration deploy.exe, which is the exe file that runs the server migration. The package, the architecture, x86, the operating system, which is WS03, the path where we're actually going to copy this folder, and we want to press enter. And we can actually see that the server migration deploy exe is copying that migration tools file to the migration tools folder. And it actually create a folder. The folder here is called SMT-WF03-X86. And if you went to your directory, you would actually see that file. So let's go and look in our directory. We copied it to the E drive. So let's open up the E drive. And we're going to look for the migration tools folder. There it is. And in that folder, we actually see the server migration WF03-X86 file. Now, what next? What we need to do then is simply to right click on that file, copy the file, and we're actually going to paste that file most likely on an external drive. You can place it on a USB stick, or you can place it on a server share. The point is, we're going to need it to copy to the Windows Server 2003 machine. Once the data has been copied from the destination server to the external USB drive, what we need to do then is to take that data and copy the data to the root of the 2003 machine, which is our old server with the source data. Once we have done that, we see that we now have the SMT-WF03-X86 folder in the root of the 2003 server. What we need to do is to expand that folder, and we need to find the server migration deploy file. This file will register Windows Server Deployment Tools in the local operating system. So we need to double click on FMIG deploy. And once this is completed, once you double click on that and run it, you're going to have the Windows migration tool ready to go at the command prompt, just like we had when we opened the server migration tools on the destination server. Another way that we can open the server migration tools besides running the server migration deploy folder is to actually run it from 2003 by clicking on administrative tools, and you will find the server migration role right here at the top of the screen. Click it, and it's actually going to open up on the command line. And we see here, you can recognize this is server 2003 because it has documents and settings. What we need to do when we get to this prompt after starting the server migration tools on 2003 is to change the directory to the root directory. We can do that with cd // or cd/. At the root, you want to type this command, add PSS snapping, Microsoft Windows Server Manager migration. So that is windows.servermanager.migration. And what that command will do is register Windows Server Migration Tools in PowerShell. One of the things that you might want to do is to see the roles that are available for migration on your 2003 server. To do that, you want to run this command, get server migration server feature. And when you do that, it will show you a list of the Windows feature names, the ID, and whether or not those roles are installed on the server. The next thing you want to do then is to export the role or feature. And the role that we're looking to export is the DHCP role. To export the role, we need to type at the PowerShell prompt, export hyphen server migration server setting hyphen feature ID space DHCP space hyphen path space and the path we have here is CUSV external. It could be whatever path you want to actually export your settings to. And once they have been exported, you will actually see success true. Before the exportation or the migration, they're going to ask you for a password, and you have to give the password. So remember, this is the command to export DHCP settings. Export hyphen server migration setting. Once you have exported the DHCP settings, what you want to do is install DHCP on the new server if you have not done that yet. DHCP has to be installed. Once you have installed DHCP, you're actually going to go to Tools and then click on the DHCP role, which will open up the DHCP console. And we can see here, this is the DHCP console. Nothing has been configured. None of the options have been configured. This is a new DHCP role. What we have to do now is to import the DHCP settings from that 2003 server. We exported them. We now want to import those settings. Because remember, we were not able to upgrade. So this is the option that we have to create a new server, install the DHCP role, and then bring the settings from the old server to the new server. So in order to import, we actually on the new server have to go to Tools, Windows Server Migration Tools, Windows Server Migration Tools, so that we can open up the command prompt. Once the command prompt is opened up, it will be opened up to Windows System 32 if you remember when we first opened the Windows Server Migration tool. And what we want to do is to change the directory from the System 32 to the root drive, which is the C drive. And to do that, we either could cd ... or cd/. Now, before we import, we actually need to stop the DHCP. So at your command prompt, you need to type net stop space DHCP server. And you will see the line telling you that the DHCP service is stopping and that it was stopped successfully. Only after that service is stopped should you type the command to import the DHCP settings. The command to import the DHCP settings, you can see it here. Import server migration, server setting, feature ID, DHCP path, and the path wherever you had it stored. And you see we added a force after that path line. Again, you're going to be asked for the password. And once the DHCP setting has been migrated, you will see success detailed true. And what you want to do is to restart the DHCP server by typing net start DHCP server at the PowerShell command line. Once you do that, you will see all the settings that you had on your server 2003 machine. You're going to see all your IP address assignments, all the addresses that you gave to your server, the leases, the reservations, and the scope options. So you see, even though we cannot upgrade 2003 to server 2012, we have the option of migrating the roles from the old server to the new one once you have installed the 2012 operating system on the new server. That is the end of this lesson. Thank you for listening.